What's going on, everyone? From LowKick MMA, my name is Dan Podolsky. I'm joined with the former WEC lightweight champion, the former UFC lightweight champion, Anthony Showtime Pettis. He's set to appear at Karate Combat 43 when he faces Benson Henderson. Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time.
Man, thanks for having me, bro.
First off, how's training been going and how this fight come together with Benson? Obviously, it'll be a third time you guys compete in combat sports.
Yeah, training's been going great. I was actually getting ready for another boxing fight. I have a boxing fight set in February, and I got the phone call. The opportunity popped up in my new hometown, Las Vegas, Nevada, against a guy that we had a lot of history against. So I had, I couldn't pass this one up. So I was definitely excited, especially against the rule set. Like I get to go out there and do what I've been doing my whole life because I come from a traditional martial arts background, and I mean this favors me. I feel like.
Yeah, so you've competed in boxing, now karate. Is there, comparative to when you were in MMA, is there one style that you're kind of finding a home now that you're at this stage of your career?
I'm still doing MMA as well, man. I still have a contract with PFL, so I'll be doing their pay-per-view series coming up. But it's all the same to me, bro. I've been doing this my whole life. I mean, I've been a lifelong martial artist. Boxing was a newer thing for me. I think I started boxing like 100% boxing probably 2 3 years ago when I started. When I transferred over from the PFL to the UFC. And then I took that fight against Roy Jones Jr. Obviously got the win on that one. So I was looking forward to building off that momentum. But the time off, I broke my hand in that PFL fight, and I was fighting with a broken hand in the rest of that tournament. So I didn't really get to showcase how good I was, and I knew that tournament format wasn't ideal situation for where I'm at in my career. But as far as like training for karate combat, this is something I've been doing my whole life. I started with a traditional martial arts background. 5 years old, I was competing in point tournaments, point style, full contact, taekwondo style tournaments, and then this opportunity came up, and it made 100% sense. Like it definitely the training camps aren't as hard as like the MMA training camps as far as the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu goes. I could focus in on just the striking part, so it doesn't take me too far away from the boxing, and yeah, it just made sense.
I will say one thing I'm a little bit disappointed about the karate fight is that we can't see a cage kick, against Benson.
Well, you can see a pit kick, man, and this favor is even better, because like the cage kick's hard because it's a vertical wall, but this has that slant where I could do a couple runs and throw a kick. So yeah, I'm gonna have some fun with that. So we built a little fake pit here out in Las Vegas. Chris Angels, one of my business partners, he helped me out with that. We put together like just the little platform for me to figure out because really the thing that it's new to me is the defense on that because if you fall back on that, figuring out how to avoid the strikes and the kicks, and Ben's a great kicker. Ben comes from Taekwondo background as well. So yeah, I mean I'm excited to see what I can do in there and what moves I could pull off.
Obviously you and Benson go back, you guys have a history. In this fight, in this stage of your guys' career, with it being karate as opposed to MMA, what do you think gives you the advantage over him?
I mean, he has everything to prove. He has to go out there and he has to like defend those losses that he lost. I mean, our first fight was super close. It was a striking match for the first round, grappling the second round, third round we striking match again. Fourth round was grappling. The fifth round we had that striking match up, and that's where the Showtime kick came from. Second round, I mean the second fight, I came out there and just blasted him with body kicks, and then caught that armbar. So I mean, he's coming off the 2 losses, but I mean, I have nothing but respect for Ben as an athlete, man. Like he's done some amazing things in the sport. He's a super competitive, guy. He's still competing at high levels. But as a competitor, man, I'm going to go out there and try to take his head off.
You have a chance to have beaten Benson by decision, submission, and if you get a KO, you would have beaten him in all three, I guess, sort of ways to win in MMA and now karate.
Yeah, man, I think this favors the knockout because I mean, even though you can go to the ground and do ground and pound punches, it's still considered a TKO. But this favors me getting the knockout because in MMA, Ben has great wrestling and great jiu-jitsu, so I already knew that. So I had to like dumb my striking down a lot. I couldn't throw the flashy moves. I mean, the Showtime kick was flashy, but it was at the end of the fight, at the end of the round. I kept it super basic in those fights. I was throwing high kicks. I had to keep that low guard for that takedown. And then he would put me on the cage a lot and use that grappling in the cage that's not non-existent in this fight, man. So I feel like this favors a knockout for sure. I'm not gonna go out there and force anything. I'm gonna go out there, have some fun, be playful, use my karate stance, my taekwondo stance, my traditional. Because when I fight traditional martial arts, I fight right leg forward. When I fought MMA, I fought right leg back just because of the takedowns and the power side. This time you'll see a mixture of both. I'm gonna go out there orthodox southpaw. I'm gonna go out there and be playful.
So at this point in your career, You talked about the boxing fight with Roy Jones Jr., you're taking a karate fight with Benson. What kind of excites you and gets you going at this point in your career?
Big fights, man. Honestly, like being the main event here in Las Vegas, Nevada, a huge fight weekend as well. I mean, you got LFA coming out to town that weekend. You got UFC the next night. I mean, everybody's going to be in town, so it's going to be it's big fights excite me. You know, like even when I did the PFL, and not talking shit about the guys that I was fighting, it was just like, man, guys that probably shouldn't have been in the cage with me, but just because of the format, it made sense, you know, for them to get in there. And I wasn't excited into them training camps. You know, I was training just to get through it to make it to the fight, and the results showed, man. Like I didn't get the results I wanted. I know it was way better than that. So you know, big fights for me right now is like even Roy Jones Jr. Man, fighting a guy like that, a legend like Roy Jones. I grew up watching the guy. You know, even though he's older now, but still, it was his you know his. I'm sorry, I got a phone call. It was his discipline, you know, boxing. You know, boxing was his discipline. So I mean, going out against Roy Jones was, you know, got me hyped up, got me ready for training, got me motivated.
Going forward, do you see yourself going back to MMA? Obviously, with PFL, if it's not the season format, they just bought out Bellator, so that could be a play for you.
Million percent, yeah. So Don Davis actually did an interview, and he was right on the target. You know, he said, you know, the tournament format doesn't really it favors the younger guys, the guys who hasn't made a lot of money in the sport yet, because they're hungry and motivated. Not saying I'm not hungry and motivated, but it's like a different level of like, I guess, motivation when you're fighting on a big card. You're fighting an opponent that everybody wants to see you fight. The energy is different around the fight. So yeah, I would say like, if I do when I go back to MMA, it has to be the right opponent, it has to be the right card, and you know, I got to be motivated for those camps.
Will it be under the Bellator sort of PFL banner when you do go back to MMA?
Yeah, well, I'm still under contract with those guys. So yeah, I will have a PFL another PFL fight before I'm a free agent over there. So yeah, I definitely think I'd be one more time over there.
And do you have any insight on kind of how PFL is going to format it now with having bought Bellator? The PFL has their system with this season. They're buying Bellator. It's kind of unclear still how Bellator and PFL are going to kind of coexist.
From my understanding, is they're going to do like these big merger pay-per-view cards. I'm not sure how they're going to continue on with the continuation of Bellator. I heard 2 years they're going to run it as its own organization. PFL is its own organization. They just signed back with ESPN, so they have a home. But I think they're going to be doing two major pay-per-views this year, and those are the cards that I'd be on.
And so for you, at this point, you're not just a fighter. I see the APFC Anthony Pettis fighting championship, but
Like
you're also a promoter. It was a big year for you guys. What are you hoping to do in 2024?
Man, I just partnered with Chris Angel, and Chris Angel is a magician out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I mean, well-known guy, but he runs one of the best productions in Las Vegas. I mean, his show is probably the most lucrative, and it's been around the longest. You know, in on the strip in Las Vegas. So yeah, me and him had a friendship forever, man. I met him actually at a nightclub, Palms nightclub, when I was up and coming, like just before I did the Showtime kick. We hit it off. He's always been a mentor to me. He saw what I was doing with APFCs, interested in getting the space. So our partnership will start in 2024, and with his production level and my skill set already in the mixed martial arts and my knowledge of mixed martial arts, I think we're gonna have a great year.
How many, I guess, shows can we expect from you guys?
10 to 12 next year. We're pushing for 10 to 12 shows next year. I'll know soon. We're grading our schedule together. I'm going to Puerto Rico next year. We just did a tryouts out there. We've been in the UK already. We did Manchester. We'll probably go back there twice. And then we're gonna do Las Vegas, and we're gonna keep going in the States.
Yeah, and what I love about your promotion is that I feel like a lot of these promotions they'll take sort of fighters who are well known in the UFC but are on the back end of your career. But I feel like you guys are really trying to build up a lot of fighters who are coming up through the regional scene and now maybe coming up through Anthony Pettis fighting championship.
That's the only goal. Yeah, I'm not trying to like go out there and compete with the UFC, PFL, Bellator, those kind of guys. I'm going out there trying to create the college level of that. The guys who win on my shows will get the contracts at the big shows, and I think that's a void right now. Because when I was up and coming and fighting, MMA, I would have to fight in like sports bars and Harley Davidson dealerships and crazy things like that. Whereas my production, man, my last show was amazing. Like I had nothing but good positive feedback, and I had some huge support. Man, I had Rampage Jackson out there, Frank Mir, Nate Diaz, CM Punk. CM Punk just got signed back with WWE. Sergio Pettis, Yair Rodriguez. Man, we had a great support, and I think the talent on the card got to feel that. They got to see who they're fighting in front of. Obviously, Chris Angel was out there, so yeah, I think it's going to be a great year for us.
Switching gears to the UFC, right? In your division that you were champion, the lightweight division, Islam Makhachev just defended his belt. For you as a former lightweight champion, where do you see Islam, I guess, kind of ranking among like the lightweight greats? of all time.
Well, he still has some work to do. I think he has some guys because he just beat Volkanovski, and Volkanovski's an amazing fighter, but he's not a lightweight. He doesn't have any wins against top 10 lightweight. So I think once he can prove himself, he's a tremendous fighter, but he still has some work to do, and that's the hard thing. Like once you get to the top, things change, man. Your energy, like you got sponsors pulling you, you got events, you got promotions, you got a lot of other options besides training. And then when you're on your way up to become the champion, literally all you're thinking about is training, like the next opponent, next fight, next opponent. So seeing how he could balance that and seeing when he fights and how dominant he is, that's what could see how great he can be. But I mean, he definitely has a skill set. His striking is amazing. His wrestling is there, just like Khabib. So we'll just see how he can handle the pressure.
All right, so yourself included, give me your top five lightweights of all time.
Top five. You got to go BJ Penn. I mean, BJ Penn's the one of the pioneers of the whole thing. So without BJ, none of this would even be possible. Ben Henderson's on my top five as well. Ben Henderson. You got to go with Khabib. Khabib's definitely on there. A dominant guy, never lost. Dustin Poirier's another guy that's on my top five list, and I would say myself.
Fair enough. Yeah, obviously you put yourself there. I think for you, it's like in you versus Benson, there's a lot of guys when you were the champion, it was kind of a revolving door of champions. And in the last few years, you had Khabib for a while. Now it's kind of Islam's chance. How do you see that division playing out for, the next few years to come?
I think the lightweight division is the most popular division just because like the average size of a man is a lightweight guy. I think the UFC roster holds like 92 lightweights right now compared to like the next biggest one's like 40 or 50 guys. So it's a stacked division. I mean, even when I came over from WEC, those two divisions colliding, everybody was like, hey, WEC guys aren't on par as the UFC guys. And we came over there and took over. Ben became the champ. I became the champ. Cowboy was right there. So we had some killers over at the WEC. It's just one of those divisions where it's always going to be stacked, and it's you go to 45, those guys they're durable as hell, but they don't have that. You don't see the knockouts, you don't see the dominant performances like you do in lightweight. And then you go to 170, you see the knockouts, but there's not as many guys over there. So yeah, I'd say 55 is going to be one of the biggest divisions always, man, in the sport. It's just the average size of a man.
When you look back on your career, I mean, you have so many incredible moments, the Showtime kick, but even besides that, becoming the champion, the knockout of Wonder Boy. Is there one moment that stands out to you above the rest?
I mean, the Showtime kick was probably the door opener, and then beating Ben the way I did the second time, with the armbar first round, getting on the Wheaties box, that was a huge moment in my career. And then I would say later in the career is Wonder Boy for sure, man, because that was one of those puzzles no one could figure out. Wonder Boy has never been knocked out, still hasn't been knocked out. He's been fighting for a long time, and I knew I had the style that could do it, and then I improved it, and I stayed to my game plan so solid. Yeah, so that was like my proudest moment as a martial artist because he was whooping my ass, bro. He was so long, hitting me with that left, and I couldn't. I was waiting for my moment. Like I knew if I kept low kicking him, his stance would get closer, and then once I got him, out of that karate stance and that long stance, I could hit him, and man, I used that cage. I mean, this is a beautiful moment.
I mean, I don't think we've ever seen two guys. I guess against Benson Henderson the first time wasn't knockout that went to a decision, but you knocked him down. I don't think we've ever seen another guy jump off the cage twice and get two knockouts as you have.
Yeah, man, I don't think so. I think I'm probably the pioneer of using the cage, and you see all these younger guys trying to do it. I'm excited to see somebody landing. It will happen. What's that? Zabit? That dude was very close to landing that, man. I think
Yeah.
I was waiting for him to land that because he wasn't afraid to throw it. There was another guy in the Contender series that was throwing it as well. He did it like twice off the cage, and I was there. I was sitting cage side when he did it, so I'm like, man, it's cool to see my mark being left on the sport.
Do you think guys should use it more?
I think so. I mean, I even use it on the ground. If you look back at a lot of my fights, and some of them like they were overlooked because like bigger moments happen. But I mean, I even used it on the ground. Guys were mounted me, and I'd use the cage to kick off, do that backflip, and get on top. I used the Wonder Boy obviously with the Superman punch, but I mean, I've done it in a lot of times in my fights where I use that cage just to ricochet myself and get that extra momentum.
All right, so one other fight I got to ask you about, really as a fan of yours, not a fight you got on the winning end of, but it's the Tony Ferguson fight.
Oh man.
It's one of my personal fights of all time. When you look back on that fight, where does that kind of rank amongst you for that fight? And how did that fight kind of change your career a little bit?
Man, that fight I took on short notice as well. So I got that fight on I think it was like 21 days or 20 days notice. So I had a horrible weight cut and no excuses at all. Tony's a killer, bro. And I knew he was coming off that knee surgery. So I was like, very, very aware of that, attacking that front leg. But then we just got into it, man. We just started exchanging. He hit me with some elbows. I mean, he made me bleed more than any other guy for sure. I mean, Wonder Boy definitely busted my nose up, but he had me cut like on my forehead. I had a lot of stitches after that fight. That dude just had a gas tank like crazy. And then I had that one moment, where I dropped him. I hit him with a kick punch. I hit him with a right hand, right kick, right punch, same time combo. He dropped, and I tried to go overhand right and fucking blew up my hand. And MMA gloves, you got to be smart. You got to be a sniper out there. And I just got too excited. But that was a fun fucking fight, man. And I hope Tony does. I mean, Tony's one of those guys that he's already he's done what he needed to do in the sport. But there's little details just it's not his cardio, it's not his heart, it's little details that he's missing right now that I think he can go back and compete at the top level. It's just more time in the sport. The more amount of minutes you are in that platform, in that cage, the more likely shit's gonna happen, man. So I think that's what's going on with him.
He's got a fight with Patty Pimblett coming up. How do you see that one playing out for him?
I mean, I'm on Tony's side on that one, obviously. I think Patty's a great fighter, but he fought Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon's a teammate of mine. I know how good Jared is, and I think Jared exposed him a little bit. Jared showed how good he really is on the top level of the lightweights.
And then I also want to ask, now that PFL and Bellator are, I guess, have merged, you're back under the same banner as your brother Sergio. How is that for you with that relationship and being back in the same promotion as him?
Man, Serge had a tough fight, his last fight. Apache makes all love to that guy too. He's a great martial artist. Very respectful. Gave Serge mad props. But it's just shit happens, bro. Like styles make fights. That dude's his length and his back takes are. We knew that was what he was going to go for. But it's cool to have me and Serge on the same banner again. Maybe fighting on the same card one more time before our careers are over. Serge impressed me so much, from where he started at, because he was one of the youngest guys on the UFC roster. And when he came in, he was a baby, and he grew up in the sport. And then when he was transferred over to Bellator, he went on a tear, bro. He was killing everybody. And one fight he came up on the wrong end, and he'll build back.
Yeah, and certainly I think with Sergio, I feel like when he first came up, and tell me if I'm wrong, he was kind of like the younger brother of you. And then once he went to Bellator, I think obviously he has that spinning back fist against Kayuji Horiguchi, but I feel like he really made a name for himself and broke out of his shell if he's not just the brother of Anthony Pettis.
Yeah, for sure. He earned his shit, man. He earned that belt. He won that belt, and he would have had $1 million too if he didn't come off that knee injury, bro. So he earned his respect, I think, but also he found how good he was. I always said in interviews, I'd be like, yo, Sergio's one of the best martial artists I ever trained with. He's well-rounded. He lives the martial arts lifestyle. He's not trying to start businesses. He's not trying to start like me. I'm all over the place with my stuff. He's totally focused on being a mixed martial artist, and he's proven that to himself. He's getting married in March, so I'm excited for that guy to go take a little break. Live life a little bit, enjoy the fruits of his labors, and then come back and do it again.
Well, a lot of big stuff coming up for you and your brother and Anthony with all of it. It's really an honor for me to get the chance to speak to you. I appreciate you taking the time. My final question, December 15th, Anthony Pettis, Benson Henderson. Anthony, give me your official prediction.
You already know, man. Every time I fight, it's showtime. I'm not going to predict how I'm going to knock him out, but I'm looking for the knockout. And like I said, all respect to Ben as a person, as an athlete, but this is a competition. It's me or him, basically. And I know he's coming to knock me out as well. So I'm not going to be too cocky out there. I'm not going to be too confident. I'm going to go out there, have fun, fight my fight, and get my hand raised.
Well, Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time. If there are any socials, teammates you want to shout out, go right ahead.
Guys, follow me on Showtime Pettis on all socials. Make sure you guys follow APFC and tune in December 15th because it's showtime.
Awesome. Guys, Anthony Showtime Pettis returns at Karate Combat 43. It's a trilogy match against Benson Henderson. You won't want to miss it. Anthony, best of luck to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, boss.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.